Hey, welcome back to the James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Well, I guess the clear evidence we have that J.D. Vance did better than Tim Walz at the debate is that the headline on CNN right now is, there's some new evidence from Jack Smith about Trump in the 2020 election. And if that's their top story, then the VP debate not being their top story must mean they don't want to talk about it. My next guest, Jeremy Rosenthal of TexasDefenseFirm.com, is on the show with us. From a lawyer's perspective, what did you think about the VP debate last night?
Man, I tuned in and I got to watch talking about it was like childcare, and I was like, I wanted a WWE wrestling match, and so I have a short attention span. I see shiny things and I run, and so I learned about that.
Right. The cops have a reason to watch because, there's been a lot of anti-cop sentiment and a differing opinion on the approach to law enforcement from the different parties. But lawyers seem to be keeping their head down, and no one has a whole lot of policies that would affect you guys, I guess.
It doesn't sound like it. Look, they just need to go out and arrest people who pay their bills and pay their lawyers, because every time a lawyer gets paid, an angel gets their wings. So I'm all for tough law enforcement. If it wasn't for tough law enforcement, I got a mortgage too. So I'm all for it.
Look at that. He's shooting back. Okay, so Jeremy Rosenthal, as a lawyer, let's talk about Sean Combs, Puff Daddy, P. Diddy, whatever you want to call him. This case keeps getting worse and worse. I did not know the magnitude of it. So we have like dozens and dozens of people, at least 25 minors. This case is a lot bigger than I thought.
Yeah, so they hired these folks have hired Tony Busby, who was Ken Paxton's lawyer, to bring civil lawsuits. And what those connections are, I'm going to be kind of curious to see. I'm thinking that maybe a lot of these allegations aren't going to necessarily be that P. Diddy did this to me, but so much as I was, P. Diddy, this was done to me. In one of these, what do they call them? The freak offs, I think is what the indictment called them. They brought me in and, I thought I was doing this, and then I was there and I was sexually abused because of P. Diddy's infrastructure or because of his whatever. So at the end of the day, if there's civil liability there and they can get to P. Diddy's wallet, that's what they're looking for. So
would you be willing to say it's all about the Benjamin's baby?
Look, I'm pretty sure Tony Busby isn't free. You can ask Ken Paxton. I'm sure.
Well, this is the same Tony. Didn't he try and beat Greg Abbott in a primary? Or
I don't remember. Yeah, maybe.
Or maybe he was running for mayor of Houston or something. I just remember him politically speaking here in Texas. He's a big name.
He's a big shot, and he knows what he's doing. I think he put out there. Look, if you've been in one of these circles, then contact me. He says, from what I've seen, there's about another 2,000 people that he's saying he's turned down that wanted to come after P. Diddy.
Did you say 2,000? I'm sorry. Did you say 2,000?
I believe that's right.
Oh my God, that's so many. I didn't even have that many girlfriends.
Yeah, and I'm probably getting that wrong. I'm going to go back. Now you've got me thinking. I'll go back and fact check. It may be 200. Again, I'm a Texas Tech Red Raider. I can fix your photocopy machine. Math, not my strong suit.
Ha, 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 ha. Nice self-deprecating humor there. The next question I have for my lawyer friend is not to just jump around on topics, but that's what I do to you. The Longshoreman Strike. Is there not some way that, okay, fine, y'all all want to go strike? We'll just hire a whole bunch of other people to come unload these boats until y'all can figure it out?
That's a lot of people, and those are what the union folks would call scabs, and it gets really hostile. I think the better question is, because I believe the executive can. I think that the president could potentially order these folks back to work. Now, I don't know that he does that. Ronald Reagan ordered the end of the strike for the air traffic controllers back in the 1980s.
All right, explain this to me, because I've been hearing Taft-Hartley Act.
Mm-hmm. Now you're gonna stump me. So when it comes to labor and employment, it's highly regulated, and there are certain areas that are going to be more central to our infrastructure than other areas, right? So I don't think that the U.S. I don't believe that we can. We don't allow ourselves to be held completely hostage by one. By a particular union or by a particular labor shortage. I mean, this is the entire East Coast, right? And they've pledged, well, okay, we'll let military stuff and we'll do that kind of stuff. But everything else, I mean, look, and if nothing else, this union is pretty darn smart because you will never have more pressure than a month before an election, right? You can believe that everybody running for office on the East Coast they are, they're feeling the pressure right now in this, and so there's a lot of pressure for this deal to get done, and and so credit to the union for striking while the iron's hot.
All right, find Jeremy at texasdefensefirm.com. You got some lawyer needs. What kind of law do you guys practice over there?
All we do is criminal defense. So yes, we are the good guys.
Another joke. All right, there you go, Jeremy Rosenthal.
Who's joking? Who's joking?
Jeremy Rosenthal, TexasDefenseFirm.com. It's so good to have someone who actually knows what they're talking about with some of these legal issues, because that absolutely escapes me. And I'm joking. He is one of the good guys. I just like to rib him because he's been on the show so much. I feel like I talk to him more than I talk to Garrett sometimes. But your thoughts, because I'm going to talk about this, that last thing he touched on there, the Longshoreman Strike going on at the ports. Oh, I have some hot opinions on that I'll share next, but I'd also like to hear yours. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. This is The James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey, welcome to The James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. I know this Longshoreman Strike isn't exciting and it isn't sexy, but you're about to care if this continues and the price for everything that you pay for from overseas goes up. That's all that's hanging in the balance. And this isn't a faraway, distant problem. You know, the Longshoreman Strike, it's happening in Texas. It's happening in Houston right now. In fact, I'm working on a segment for tomorrow's show. I knew we wouldn't get to it today because the debate took up half the show, and rightfully so. But tomorrow, there's some audio from the Longshoremen striking, telling you why they're striking in their own words. A lot of this is going to strike you, well, no pun intended. This sounds like a dad joke. This may strike you funny, but this may strike you funny. But a lot of this is the normal stuff. We want more pay. We want better working conditions, whatever. But there's a weird twist to this one that's not in most strikes that you and I talk about on the show and in years past. And this one, I don't even know how they do this. They are saying we don't want any more automation to replace us. We don't. Can you do that? Like, how would you even write that rule? We don't want any technological advancements in our industry. We want you to promise to never do anything better or more efficiently in the future. First off, what a dumb, economically speaking, what a terrible, just garbage, dog water, dumpster fire idea that is. I know where it comes from, but it sounds like a 4-year-old. There's an old joke where an economist goes to China when they're doing their first 5-year plan under Mao Zedong. And they have a big, they're building a dam there. And in order to move all the earth, instead of having backhoes, they had like 200 dudes with shovels. And so this American economist says to his handler, it's like, what? Why aren't y'all using backhoes? Why aren't you using machines? And they're like, well, if we use the machines, it would only take maybe 5 or 6 guys to move all this dirt. If we use shovels, then 200 people have a job. And he goes, hell, if the purpose of the project is to make jobs, why don't you just give them spoons? And that's absurd. It's a joke, but it makes a very salient point. Are we better off because we automated other labor-intensive industries like farming? It used to be, if you wanted to go pick the crops for corn, human beings would have to go out there with their own hands and their own baskets and in a terribly inefficient manner, hand-pick the corn. Now we have these giant machines where two dudes, one driving a giant combine and the other one driving the catcher truck next to him, can do the job of 1,000 people in half the time because we've automated it. Now, how much money do you spend on food every day? Like 2% of your income. All right, don't worry. These aren't rhetorical questions. I know the answers. Before we automated it for most of medieval times when we did have the labor-intensive farming, about half of your income every month would go to food. Are you better off? See, this longshoreman saying, well, we don't want any robots to replace us. They're now bargaining against you. They're bargaining against me, Sean, Garrett, everyone here. They're bargaining against them. Because if they can make sure that we unload boats at the port in a less efficient manner, then the costs that we would see, or the cost savings that we would see from automation, don't happen. They're going to keep prices higher than they otherwise would be with this contract for anything that comes from overseas. Now, is that good for the longshoremen? Kinda. Is that good for the longshoremen union? Definitely. Is that good for the other 329 million Americans? Absolutely not. So the standard of living goes down for everyone but the longshore workers. Great. What a great deal that is. What a great swap that is. Is that a good deal? Is that the best way to run the economy? Is that what's good for economic growth? Hey, if you don't like automation, why don't you get rid of all those cranes and forklifts? Y'all can just put everything in a wheelbarrow and carry it by hand. Then you'd have to hire 10 times as many longshore workers. No, that would be really expensive and inefficient. Exactly. How can you be in support of the demands of the longshoremen and still dare to call yourself a progressive? One of the planks in their grievance list is halting progress. That's one of the demands. We demand that there be no progress made. We demand that no more efficiencies be made in our line of work. Well, what are they going to do if they're all put out of a job? What are all the people that were picking cotton and picking corn and picking blueberries, picking strawberries? What are they doing now? They went out and they got different jobs. Why? Because everything else that came through that port was cheaper for every business. Businesses are saving millions and billions of dollars if we can automate those ports. And they'll have enough money to hire the longshoremen that now have to come up with a more skilled job than just picking up boxes and getting them off the boat. And I'm not trying to minimize what they do, but this whole longshoreman strike, I mean, I don't like strikes to begin with, but the economic fantasy about preventing automation, I mean, is that even possible? Because, I mean, here's what I foresee happening. They cripple the companies that are unloading boats now, and some other company that isn't beholden to a union contract can just go undercut them and put them out of business. Oh, that can't happen because the state will prevent it, because it happens where those ports happen to be run by people who are politically sympathetic to them. Well, what about Houston? Man, I can't explain that. I can't explain how this is supposed to be the reddest of the red states. We're supposed to be the America of Americas. We're supposed to be the biggest free market capitalist pigs we have to offer, and we're having to deal with this too. I don't like this strike at all. You don't like the conditions at work? Get a better job. You don't like the pay at work? Ask for a raise or get a different job. That's what I have to do. I've had like 10 different jobs in the last 20 years. Just because you get a job doesn't mean you have the right or the expectation that you should just be able to ride that out for the rest of your life with no bumps in the road to your employment. That's an unreal expectation, and it's not a very convincing grievance. Get back to work before the shelves get empty and we really get mad. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. Coming up next, we're going to talk to Victoria from the New York Post about how the VP debate is affecting swing states. So we'll talk about that and your longshoremen's opinions. I'd love to hear it. 800-288-9227. This is The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Yeah, but you know. I should be his voice guy. I could do that. Fire that guy. Let me do it. This is The James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Just to continue the countdown here, 34 days until the election. The James Show is going to be live from the State Fair of Texas coming up on Friday. I want to remind you of that. And if you want to jump in at any time, the phone number 800-288-9227. Because the question is Taylor Swift's politics finally hurting her popularity? Because, you know, you see a lot of people complaining about it, but are these people who were even her fans to begin with? 800-288-9227. Returning to the show, Scott Baradell. He does a lot of this branding, marketing, stuff like that. You tell me, Scott Baradell, do you think Taylor Swift's politics are finally hurting her popularity?
I don't really think so. I think, as you said, I think this is mostly the people that weren't big fans anyway. From everything I've seen, Taylor Swift is one of those people who has a pretty good finger on the pulse of her fan base. I think the fan base portion that are conservative or don't like her politics kind of separate that from her music, which they still like. So all in all, I'm not really seeing a downside for her.
Right, and you just described me. I don't fit the normal demographic, but just generally speaking, I'm a Taylor Swift fan. I don't hate her. I know her politics don't agree with me, but I recognize my politics probably run counter to most of the people I listen to on the radio. I mean, I can only listen to so many albums by like Ted Nugent and I guess Muse and Smashing Pumpkins, Billy Corgan, sort of on our team. Thank goodness I can separate the art and the artist. I wouldn't have anything to listen to. I wouldn't be able to watch most of Netflix.
Ted Nugent, maybe.
Right. Ted Nugent, who I'm a fan of his, and he's a fan of mine. He's aware of the James Show. But I always find it weird how people can't separate that. And for Taylor Swift, she's really pushed a lot of people over that edge.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's certainly infuriated a lot of people simply because she is so popular. People know there's influence, and Kamala Harris's campaign took advantage of it immediately after the endorsement with, these friendship bracelets and taking advantage of kind of, some things that Swifties do to line up with that, which was smart of their campaign. So you can see why people would be frustrated and upset and burn her music and all those kind of things. But again, I think it's mostly people who weren't huge fans to begin with. This might have been different if it was 2006 and it was Taylor Swift putting out Tim McGraw and when she was a country singer and singing those kind of songs. That might have been more like what happened to the Dixie Chicks when they came out. They came out against George Bush, and it almost destroyed their career. So part of this relates to the evolution of Taylor Swift in general, from being someone who was a country girl, very apolitical, singing country music, to what she's become, which is this global pop icon that can kind of do what she wants, it seems like.
Well, for the people who do control their own brand, usually you're not a pop star, you're a small business owner. How much do they have to worry about politics turning away their customers?
Well, you do have to worry about it if you're most small businesses. I mean, if you're a restaurant or most businesses, it's really not about the politics. And if you make it about the politics, you could lose half your customer base. So in the case of someone like Taylor Swift, it's a larger than life situation, and people will follow her because she's her. In the case of a lot of businesses, if you're putting a Trump sign outside your door, or you're doing something that suggests you support the other side, you risk turning a lot of people off. Not only that, you risk people review bombing you online and doing other things that could really hurt you. So you definitely have to be careful these days. Businesses of all sizes have to worry about that stuff.
I always thought, just generally speaking, if you're a pop star or a movie star, just why bring up politics at all? And then I saw so much pressure being put on this woman over the last year or so to make a political statement. So she was just in a no-win territory from my point of view. And I'm not saying I feel sorry for her, but I almost feel like her hand was forced more so than other celebrities.
Yeah, I kind of feel like in the previous election that kind of the same thing that happened to The Rock. Dwayne Johnson didn't seem like he wanted to get so involved, but there was so much pressure being put on him that he finally felt like he had to. And that definitely happens when you're such a big celebrity. This applies to big brands too. You can start to have get this pressure that, hey, you're too important to not have an opinion. But as you said, if you're dribbling a basketball or singing or something like that for a living, there's nothing that makes you an expert on politics anyway. So you certainly should have the right to bow out and not participate if you don't want to.
Scott Baradell, tell them, the people listening, what you do at Idea Grove.
Well, we help companies with branding and PR.
See, that's why I'm talking to him about branding and PR issues. Thank you very much, Scott Baradell.
Thank you.
All right, I put it off as long as I can. I made some promises, and I'm sorry I'm going to have to keep them in the next segment. We're going to play a couple of parody songs. There's a new one, too. You want to hear the new parody song from the election 2012? And I've already made some promises that I got to play Borders Are I've got to play Tampon Tim. I'm not playing the Eat the Cat song again, so don't get your hopes up on that one. If you have any comments, you got one segment to get them in, and maybe if I talk to you, I won't have to play all these songs. 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker. It's The James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome to The James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. If you're just joining us, look, man, we had a great 3 hours, and if you missed some of it, as soon as the show's over, I'm going to go back to my studio. I'm going to put up the podcast. And if you're looking for a nice breakdown of the VP debate, we did that for the first few hours, or for the first couple hours, basically. But let me go ahead and give you just a little bit of summary, maybe to whet your appetite to go check out the podcast tonight. Because my takeaway that's different than what you heard on all the other shows, no one else did this, that I heard at least, is I was more concerned about the things not in the debate. There was no questions about the Constitution in last night's debate. To be fair, there's no real questions about the Constitution in either one of the presidential debates, Trump versus Biden or Trump versus Kamala Harris. The debates are a joke. The debates are not there for the American public to have the best concept of how the two candidates would govern the nation. It's very Machiavellian. They are there to see if they can help Team Blue advance in their agenda and see if they can stop Team Red from advancing in their agenda. That's why the moderators were there. That's why they were asking the questions they asked. That's why they were asking them from the angle they asked them. That's why they chose to do follow-up questions, more so on one guy than the other. That's why they only fact-checked one side. So that's sort of the takeaway from that is what's not in it. That should bother you, that there's no constitutional questions in there. There's no questions about Social Security. There's no questions about how to balance the budget, stop inflation, lowering the deficit. Nothing. But abortion got 16 mentions, guns, 24 mentions. So that was the briefest of summaries of our VP coverage. You might want to go check that out. But right now, I owe a bunch of people some favors. I did not realize that this is the only place you hear Tampon Tim. I got it. A friend of mine does a radio show in Houston. He shared it with me. I got his permission to play it. I've just assumed it was on YouTube somewhere. It's nowhere else. So this one, you're only hearing on The James Show, and that's the parody from Chance McClain called Tampon Tim.
Grade school boys and grade school girls all need tampons all over the world. Once a month, their front holes bleed. There's just one thing they need.
When you think about what?
When you think about tampons.
Who do you think of, Chance?
Think Tampon Tim.
When you think about what?
When you think about tampons.
What do you think of?
Think Tampon Tim.
Well, that makes sense.
Tampon, tampon, tampon Tim. Little white torpedoes from a cotton gin. Tampon, tampon, tampon Tim. Have a tampon party with all your friends.
Tampon party.
When you think about tampons, think Tampon Tim. When you think about tampons, think Tampon Tim. When you think about tampons, think Tampon Tim. Tampon Tim, Tampon Tim, Tampon Tim.
All right, so Brandon sent me another Tampon Tim song. I can't play that until tomorrow because I'm going to have to beep out some dirty words. So look forward to it. It never ends with these parody songs. And I sound like I'm complaining. It's a great complaint to have, how we're just flooded with hilarious content. I mean, this makes presidential campaigns so much funner or more fun than in years past. The other one I had to play for you. Oh, yeah, the Border Czar one. I had two requests for this today. This for you, Jennifer, and whoever else I forgot.
From the wackos on the left to the MAGAs on the right, they know I'm beating Kamala. This race won't even be tied. Her policies are nutso. She's out her goddamn mind. She just repeats the same thing, regurgitating her lines. She thinks that immigration without paperwork is good. Clearly not too much power underneath Kamala's hood. Borders are, it's what you are. Borders are. Cackling Kamala, you're dumb. Mass inflation imminent if she weasels herself in. If that don't sound like fun to you, then you better help me win. I promise I'll secure you, you'll be in better hands. It'd be a flippin' free-for-all with what Kamala plans. Borders are, it's what you are. Borders are, borders are. Laugh it up, Kamala. This lady, she's kept going crazy.
All right, so these two parodies, I think they're more effective than just your flat-out insulting parodies because they're based on an actual issue. Tim Walz really did support and sign a bill that would put free tampons in the restroom for boys in elementary school. I mean, even if they do think that they're girls, they're not needing that yet. Yeah, that got awkward real quick. And then the other one, the borders are. You realize that in the post-debate analysis on CBS, the people who hosted the debate, they had a guy come out there and fact check, and they're like, actually, Kamala Harris was technically never the borders are. Dude, y'all are sticking with that? And with all the montages we have of you saying borders are, so it's legit. The border's a mess. It's laid at the feet of Kamala Harris. That song makes the connection in a way that's emotional. And once there's that emotional grab, you remember it. You may not even remember the details of it. You just remember, Kamala Harris's failed borders are. Just kind of that general feeling is what you take with you. And the other one, the Kamala Harris, the Gilligan's Island. Who's Big Mike? I don't know that person. Is that somebody I know? All right, thank you very much for hanging out on the James Show today. You have a chance to win a trip to Vegas from us. You know, we give away sometimes just like little tickets or a book or something. This is huge. This is a trip to Vegas. You'll see Scorpions live at Planet Hollywood, and it's coming up. All you got to do is text the word anniversary right now to 95819. That's anniversary to 95819 for your chance to win a trip to Vegas to see Scorpions at Planet Hollywood. All right, thank you very much for hanging out on the James Show. If you need more James Show action, I'll be putting up the podcast after the show. You can find it at WBAP.com, the WBAP app, or wherever you're already listening to podcasts. Just look for James Parker or the James Show. It will probably pop right up. Thank you very much for hanging out with me. Totally appreciate your time. Hope I made it worth your while. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, and now on FM at 93.3.